This week at the movies, what happens when a couple of desk jockeys start packing heat?
Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg answer that question in the new comedy, The Other Guys.
We need your cooperation.
Run!
Also coming up this week,
Welcome to my house. Check this. It's the biggest battle ever.
Michael and I conduct a verbal dance-off with our review of Step Up 3D.
yeah, Luke Wilson sexes up the internet in Middlemen.
We take some pictures, we scan them, we upload them, and we make a little money.
Plus, dance on screen is not easy to pull off. We talk about the best and the worst in our over-under segment.
I want to do good cop, bad cop. I come strong, and then you come in.
Got it.
I want to know everything now.
Okay, well, I'll talk to you. You're reasonable.
You want to talk to me? I thought you said bad cop, bad cop.
Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg play bad cop in The Other Guys. I'm Michael Phillips of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm A.O. Scott of the New York Times.
The first half of The Other Guys is the action comedy Kevin Smith tried and failed to make with Cop Out. Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg play two New York Police Department desk jockeys who never wreak any havoc or grab any headlines or catch any high-profile bad guys. Wahlberg's character, a disgraced beat cop, is a high-strung powder keg. Ferrell, by contrast, is the officious, by-the-book accountant who, in this scene, proves hilariously literal-minded when it comes to being insulted.
If I were a lion and you were a tuna, I would swim out in the middle of the ocean and eat you.
Okay, first off, a lion swimming in the ocean? Lions don't like water. But you find yourself in the ocean, 20-foot waves, I'm assuming it's off the coast of South Africa, coming up against a full-grown 800-pound tuna with his 20 or 30 friends, you lose that battle. You lose that battle 9 times out of 10. Did that go the way you thought it was going to go?
Now, that bit reminds us why we go to Will Ferrell movies, even if some of them turn out like Land of the Lost. The plot of The Other Guys has the guys chasing after a Bernie Madoff-type investment scam artist, played by Steve Coogan, whom here they apprehend by accident.
A little bit of a rush, gentlemen, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Excuse me? You're under arrest, okay? What? You have the right to remain silent. Anything you do or say can be used, what's the next word?
As a flotation device.
As a flotation device. Oh, you know what? That's very funny. I have never Miranda'd anyone before.
Really?
Are you guys for real? Am I being punked?
Wahlberg's also funny in The Other Guys, as is Michael Keaton as their captain. Eva Mendes as Ferrell's wife is more about the vavoom than the funny.
Who are you?
I'm Dr. Sheila Gamble, his wife.
Come on, seriously, who is that?
His old lady.
Sweetie, it's a workstation.
Got it.
And you come in here dressed like a hobo. It's distracting.
I know you're working. I'm so sorry.
Come on. Seriously. Come on, what? Who is that?
Directed and co-written by Ferrell's frequent collaborator, Adam McKay, The Other Guys rolls along very nicely for a while. Then, in the second half, the jokes get elbowed off to the side by an overstuffed plot and, more damagingly, by the movie's penchant for lethal weapon scale mayhem. Bigger is not necessarily better, and certainly it's not always funnier. After the screening, I heard a group of 20-somethings talking about how the movie didn't know when to quit. Exactly. And yet, that first half has enough laughs in it, I think, to say rent it. I would say rent it.
Yeah, I would say rent it, too. I mean, I think it maybe not a matter of not knowing when to quit so much as not knowing where to go. It starts very strong, and Ferrell doing this odd character who has some weird stuff in his past and a lot of sort of different parts to his personality. It reminds you a little of the work he did in Talladega Nights and Anchorman, you know, his really good movies.
Okay, but big change, though, big change, because here he is not playing one of these grandiose boors like he did so wonderfully in Anchorman, which is my favorite Will Ferrell film still, I think. And Talladega Nights, here he's to have a buttoned-up character that sort of slowly starts going crazy. That gives you a progression.
Well, and
that's helpful.
And he plays against Wahlberg's, because Wahlberg is sort of the hothead who's screaming and yelling, and the thing in his past is that he once mistakenly shot Derek Jeter of the Yankees, which is quite funny. And there's a lot of really inventive, goofy, silly stuff. But then it gets really bogged down in this big plot. And then the weirdest thing to me was right at the end, in the end credits, there's all this stuff about CEO bonuses and about TARP bailouts, and as if this movie had been a populist satire
Yes, yeah, I agree,
against
right.
Wall Street and corporate greed, which it hasn't been at all.
But I think the more important thing, Tony, is that everything we're talking about, I think, really did happen in the first half of the picture. So you start to look at, okay, where does it start deflating? And it really is because I think McKay, as a director, mistakes replicating the kind of Lethal Weapon action as some sort of homage or satire, and it's not. It's just, in a way, I was reminded of Tropic Thunder, a film I liked, a comedy that had a lot of good stuff in it. But I think that film, too, felt a little big for the size of a project it should have been.
I think it's because there's a cynical commercial calculation, which is that, you know, the kids want the laughs and the big explosions, and I don't think that those work together very much at all.
Right.
I think they should trust the humor, but I think this is rentable, or better yet, you know, the best bits will show up on YouTube.
I think so. And I love. No, Farrell's very funny in this. Yeah.
He is. Okay, moving on. Do you like movies with powerful acting, brilliant writing, and stories that make sense? If so, then our next movie is definitely not for you. It's Step Up 3D, and like the previous 2 installments in this high-kicking, hip-shaking, belly-button-bearing franchise, it's silly, corny, and completely irresistible. I mean, check out these moves. There is a story, kind of. Moose and Camille, characters in the earlier films and best friends who don't yet realize they're in love, find themselves at NYU. Moose, who's supposed to be studying engineering and who's played by Adam Savani, falls in with a dance crew called the Pirates. They're led by Luke, who has his own love interest named Natalie. But who cares about any of that? Check out the robot dance. Now imagine that in 3D, and imagine this, the signature Step Up water dance. Unlike a lot of other movies that are released in 3D, this one was actually shot in 3D. And the director, John Chu, uses the format to turn this film into an exuberant, extravagant, crazily kinetic pop artifact. I think it actually honors the art form of dance, but not in a solemn, highbrow way. So I'm down, or up, or in, or whatever the kids are saying these days. I just say, see it.
You're in.
You're
down.
in.
No, I say see it too. I don't know if the film really honors the dance art form or whatever, but I enjoyed it, and I've enjoyed every one of these step-up pictures a little more than the last one.
Yeah.
I think, and honestly, Tony, as long as you go into this film not hating the idea of dance on screen,
right,
I think it's almost impossible to resist. It's got the sweetest natured kind of exuberance of any picture I've seen this summer, and just in terms of sequels, more fun than Iron Man 2, more fun than Twilight 3 for my money, Shrek 4, you name it. It's actually a really good time, kind of by any standard.
I also like the idea of using 3D not to create big, explosive, overpowering effects, but these moments of ridiculous wit and whimsy. There's one scene where, like, the 2 of the characters are flinging Slurpees off of a straw, and you have this sort of fake-looking pink ice floating out into the screen.
Yeah.
And then there's also a wonderful, talking about honoring, you know, the art of dance, there's a wonderfully played, without a cut, straight, old-fashioned dance number.
This is the 2-person number on the street that's I Won't Dance, sung by Fred Astaire, right?
Yes. That was used in the Fred Astaire movie, Roberta, and it reminds you of the tradition that this movie's part of.
I think there's a lot of things I'm a sucker for, truly, by any standard. I like movies that have a deeply romantic view of New York City and what it means to be a young person moving there. I think this film is no less disposable or dated already than the breakdancing movies from the 80s or the Universal Studios jive pictures from the 40s. But you know what? I enjoy all of them, and I enjoy Step Up 3D.
Yeah, me too.
We'll talk more about dance movies we like and some we don't like in our Over-Under segment. And coming up next, we'll take a look at a remarkable war film from Israel and a British kidnapping thriller.
They just took me.
But first, with only one episode of At the Movies remaining, we're taking a look back at the review of the first Step Up movie, where Richard Roper and guest critic Kevin Smith had a slight disagreement.
You're right. It's very familiar.
Right.
You've got the classic mom who doesn't believe in her child's dream of dancing. She's like, you need to go to college. And, of course, like every other mom in these kinds of movies, she finally shows up and sees her daughter's dream. I don't know what she's been doing for the last 10 years. I mean, this thing just follows every single step. And, you know, on top of everything else, this guy is not a good dancer.
Oh, come on.
He's got got that one pop and lock move. You know what?
Show me one of
I
those
could
moves,
take you out
sir.
on State Street, and there's guys out there with buckets that you can throw $1 in the thing, and they can dance better than that.
But it's tough to be in the position where you're saying that some dude can't dance if you're not going to do a step yourself. The floor is yours.
Well, you know what? If he wants to come here, we'll talk to him. I'll have a dance off with
It
him.
didn't make you feel good? That movie didn't make you feel good?
It made me feel good when it was over, so I could get out of there.
You're a hay tank and a very small man with a black heart. That's all I'm going to say about that.
אוקיי, שים לב. יש לי את הטנק שלך, 12 לוחמים ורשימת משימות שאני צריך לבצע בשלושת השבועות הקרובים.
כמה 3 שבועות?
Time to take a look at some smaller and very claustrophobic movies now in theaters. First up, in limited release from Israel, the war drama Lebanon. This movie won the top prize at the Venice Film Festival last year. It's directed by an Israeli filmmaker, Samuel Maoz, and it's autobiographical. He was, as a young man, in a tank during the Lebanon War in 1982 when the Israeli troops swept into Lebanon. And this is a really powerful piece of filmmaking. It almost entirely takes place within this tank. All you see of the outside world is through the target finder in the turret.
The film that reminds me of the most, probably, Tony, is Wolfgang Petersen's Das Boot, which was similarly confined. But I think this film is certainly a greater achievement than that. I think it's morally troubling in every good and gripping way.
Yes.
And I think it's remarkably visually interesting, considering this challenge of how do you keep a film that is set that tightly inside a can,
Right.
interesting. And I was very moved by it.
because other people kind of pop in and you hear voices over the radio and you see
But the
some
perspective
very
is entirely from in there,
images of the Lebanese towns that they're going through, and you feel the chaos and the fear and the moral confusion that these guys are going through.
Yeah, very strong. One of the best I've seen this year. Also in limited release, The Disappearance of Alice Creed, starring Gemma Arterton.
I was leaving the house and they just took me. I don't know where I am.
Stop. I don't want a narrative. I just want you to look into the camera and tell him that unless he pays the money, we will kill you.
It's not set in a tank. It's set in a room, essentially one-room, three-person thriller, which you don't find very often on screen. Right. Eddie Marsan and Martin Compson play kidnappers of the Gemma Arterton character, who's the daughter of a rich businessman. Simple kidnapping scenario, but the relationships are not quite what you think. And I think this is a well-made picture that is essentially garbage. So
that's what I thought.
It's just a cheap thriller. I do not get the press it got in England. It got a great critical ride.
And it's being treated as sort of an intense psychological thriller. And there is one or two semi-provocative plot twists, but basically it's just kind of repellent. There's way too much of the camera lingering over Gemma Arterton's naked body as she's handcuffed to the bed with a gag in, and there's something sadistic and also self-congratulatory about it.
Yeah,
I mean,
think so.
it's not bad
acted,
filming,
well
shot,
acted, but
well cut,
does
well
not
acted,
matter. Does not
but
matter.
worthless. Coming up next, Luke Wilson gets in over his head in Middleman.
You realize you just attempted to blackmail a publicly elected state official?
We can take a credit card from anywhere in the world and deliver a product anywhere in the world. We can make a profit on every transaction. We're just the middlemen. That's limitless.
Conceived as a TV series, Middlemen is about the guys who made millions on internet pornography back in the 1990s when dinosaurs ruled the earth, the VCR was king, and online commerce was not yet a part of our everyday lives. Good luck trying to keep up with the first 20 minutes or so of director and co-writer George Gallo's blur of a movie. Giovanni Ribisi and Gabriel Macht play the cocaine-addled duo who've begun to make a little bit of money posting dirty pictures online for a slight fee. So, what's the next step?
For that. What do you? People do it with magazines all the time. You swipe your credit card in the computer. No, you dial it in. It's zeros and ones. Why are you being so negative? There is no program for that. Why are you being so negative? Punching your numbers on the credit.
What's wrong with that? What are you doing?
Do not interrupt me for the next 15 minutes.
Okay.
So that's where PayPal came from. Luke Wilson is the audience identification figure in this craziness. He plays a Houston family man who comes to L.A. to help a friend out with his nightclub, and he ends up a business pioneer in a business he does not initially approve of.
I have no interest in making a living creating porn. I have a family. I don't want to be a pornographer. So if I come on board, I want this to be a legit business, 100%.
I understand. I couldn't agree with you more.
I never got the feeling Gallo and company figured out how to compress and focus their stories. James Caan has a juicy supporting role as a shady lawyer tipping around the edges of this underworld, which includes a Russian mobster or two and adult entertainment stars. Before long, though, the frantic visual style grows numbing, and Wilson is just barely adequate in the leading role, which is practically all voiceover narration and no real dramatic tension. This is the drab e-commerce version of Boogie Nights. I say skip it.
I was amazed to learn, though, that there's pornography on the internet. That was a real eye-opener.
There is. That's the historical value of this picture. Yeah. What did you think?
Well, I would say rent it. I mean, it's a mess, and you can feel how it's trimmed down from something much larger and more ambitious. But I like the ambition. It wants to be a kind of a casino of pornography, or a Boogie Nights of the internet.
Right.
I thought enough of the characters were interesting. I actually kind of liked Luke Wilson. I thought he had an interesting mixture of kind of bland, suburban, ordinary. And a hint
He's the hole at the center of what you need. You needed a much more interesting actor. And I think the part's compromised as written, and I just don't think. I think Wilson's very effective in supporting roles in comedies, and I don't think he's got the stuff it takes to really kind of ground a movie like this, where you have to find out what's going on in this guy's head.
No, I thought it was pretty interesting, and I like the sort of the gamey, sleazy thriller comedy feel to it. I think it is a mess. I think it does go wrong in the way you say it does, but I think that there's enough there, and I'm not just talking about the skin.
No,
and the
if you had told me a film with this much nudity and drug-addled craziness was going to turn out this dull, I would have been surprised. But there it is. Coming up next, Tony demonstrates his ballet technique while I dazzle what's left of our viewership with tap combinations as we talk about some of our favorite and
Isn't right. Feel depressed.
left of our viewership with tap combinations as we talk about some of our favorite and least favorite song and dance extravaganzas in our over-under segment.
When the movies discovered sound, they also discovered dance, which means we've had more than 80 years of on-screen hoofing, tapping, pirouetting, and boogieing. That's a lot of history, so for our over-under segment today, we're looking at more recent dance movies. Which are the ones that soar with the best Busby Berkeley and Fred Astaire, and which of them have two left feet?
Tony, I don't want to talk about this. I hate musicals. No, I love musicals. I love them. I'm in the bag for the genre. It's one of my favorites. I have to say though, my overrated for lately, Moulin Rouge, Baz Luhrmann's busy extravaganza of Paris in the 1890s. I love that film for the first 3 minutes. And that breathless,
I love the posters.
Well, the posters too. But I love the first 3 minutes of Moulin Rouge, and then I realized the entire film was going to be paced, shot, edited, and sort of thrown at you in exactly the same rhythm, and it was exhausting.
I had a similar problem with my overrated pick, which is very overrated in that it won Best Picture Oscar not so long ago, which is Chicago. Which I think it's so poorly shot and edited. It halfway makes the transition from stage to screen and didn't work as a movie for me, and as also in particular a depiction of dance. I just did not get the sense of athleticism and sweep and drama and sensuality.
It's more surprising with Rob Marshall because he comes from the stage. He's a choreographer. He should know how to hold a shot long enough to allow a dancer and a performer to really show what they can do. And that is the thing I hate the most about Moulin Rouge. It is pure hell on the performers. And if a director can't sustain visual interest for more than 3 seconds on showing what a dancer in motion can do without cutting, I know it's a fuddy-duddy reaction, but I just feel like that director is temporarily not right.
And doesn't trust the audience. So what do you like? What's underrated? What's
underrated for me? It's a film directed by Herbert Ross. It's the film version of Pennies from Heaven, based on the BBC miniseries. And Steve Martin plays the desperate sheet music salesman in Depression era Chicago area. And I think the best 4 or 5 production numbers in Pennies from Heaven come the closest to recapturing what was truly great about the MGM golden years, about every aspect about showing off a performer and design and everything. And it is the most acid, bitter, nasty picture, and people hate it, but I like it.
No wonder you love it.
All right.
Well, mine is The Company, Robert Altman's movie. I have a Chicago theme in both of my picks today. Set at the Joffrey Ballet here in the city of Chicago. Wonderful backstage movie, very little story.
Very little story.
Process movie. You see the dancers dancers rehearsing. Neve Campbell was one of the producers. She used to be a dancer. And it's just a lovely movie about the beauty and the agony of dance.
Yes, that's good. That's good. Coming up next, can't decide what to see in theaters? Stay tuned for My 3 to See.
Wouldn't know where else to go. Closed captioning for At the Movies is sponsored by...
Okay, time now for My 3 to See. Number 3, Step Up 3D. I found the sequel to be a really good time. Number 2, Lebanon, a very strong war drama. And number 1, Get Low. Robert Duvall, Bill Murray, and Sissy Spacek star in a Depression-era comedy drama that reminds us a good story, simply told and beautifully acted, is appreciated any time of year.
That's it for now. We'll leave you with a recap of this week's show.
Join us next week for the final episode of At the Movies. We'll be paying tribute to the long history of the show and talking about some new movies, including Eat, Pray, Love with Julia Roberts.
And until then, and for not much longer, we'll be at the movies.